A few features I never thought a survival horror needed were things like randomized dungeons, weapon durability, and directionless narrative. Well, developer Dead Drop Studio had a different idea of what the genre could be and decided to deliver the mess that is Outbreak Endless Nightmares. Outbreak Endless Nightmares begins with a long text crawl that explains how your character arrived at this temporary place which changes over time. Following the scene, you're dumped into a small hub world where you can explore and pick up starting weapons. Strange statues are scattered about that have nothing of interest to share about this area, but this is where you'll ultimately be to change run speeds, camera perspective, and other similar features. The controls take some time getting used to as they are pretty much tank controls. Usually this isn't a problem as you would just use the D-pad, but here you have to use the joysticks to move. You can change to what they call modernized tank controls, but I didn't feel much of a difference between the two. Well, let's be clear, I never felt like I was walking anywhere, more like I was awkwardly stumbling my way through the map adjusting to the terrible controls. There is a remedy though. By changing the camera angle, you're able to move to an over-the-shoulder mode and a first-person mode. While the inputs are the same, it's easier to orientate yourself with the perspective. However, controls are the least of the game's worries once you actually start playing. If you get too close to a wall in first person, it'll send you back to the over-the-shoulder mode until you get further away. This creates a strange shift while you're making your way through the procedurally generated rooms. If you wish to see what's ahead of you or even what's behind you, you can switch to a tactical camera mode that can fly through objects and reveal all the seemingly pre-bought assets this horror adventure has to offer, which in retrospect was the scariest part about the game. This tactical camera just doesn't care. It'll go through walls, doors, and even escape the boundaries of the game itself. Its intended features to give you a view of the entire floor you are on to be better prepared. But in a survival horror type game, not knowing what's ahead is where the fun is. I have no idea why this feature is here, but we're still only scraping the surface of this sad excuse for a game. Your first job in Outbreak Endless Nightmare is to collect coins used to unlock areas. Every entrance is boarded up, and we're not even playing the actual game yet. At this point, I was about 40 minutes in and still hadn't done anything. There's no tutorial or details on how to start playing. You're thrown into the hub world and expected to figure it out. I think these ghastly statues are supposed to act like tutorials, but most of what they say is useless or cryptic. It was only out of boredom that I interacted with a piano, and surprisingly, I finally got to play. Let me be clear, the piano does have a glow around it, like everything else you can interact with. But when everything else says complete nonsense, the last thing I would have thought to progress the game would be a piano. It's like if every door in a hall is locked in an RPG, and after hours you interact with a random face that has a key. This hub world is just a strange way to start. Why not begin with the first run knowing that you were gonna die? Now that I was actually playing, the inadequate controls come back for revenge. I was running into walls, enemies, and traps that I promised I was trying to avoid. Each room is littered with gas traps that look like green fart animations, enemies, and load of reused assets during a run. There was even runs where I was spawned in taking damage from an enemy placed right behind me. You die a lot in this game, which is expected in a roguelike, but with death comes more information or unlocked features to make it further. However, here when you die, you keep all your weapons and ammo, which at first sounds pretty cool. Then you realize your gun is close to breaking. Yes, these weapons have durability, and it's probably the most annoying feature yet. What's worse about this is that the ammo is almost impossible to find, and none of the starter items from the hub respawn. I know that I wasn't talking too much about the story, but that's mainly because I don't really know what's going on. Most of it is told through either documents or text crawls that would rival even a visual novel opening. I had no idea what was happening, and a 5-minute text crawl in the beginning wasn't the way to get me to care. Apparently, this is the 6th entry in the series, and I have no intention of ever playing any of the previous titles. I spent 2 hours playing Outbreak Endless Nightmare, which was more than enough to know it wouldn't get better. The game fails at being a roguelike and a survival horror with its terrible systems, controls, and asset flip layouts, but that's only the summarized version of this awful experience. The endless nightmare of Outbreak comes from knowing you wasted any amount of time from your life playing it. Noisy Pixel giving Outbreak Endless Nightmare a 1 out of 10. Thank you for watching. Please read the full review at noisypixel.net. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers who work hard to deliver news, reviews, previews, and more. Please subscribe to keep up with all our future content.
Noisy Pixel.